What's up, class? We're back and up and running today. Sorry about the issue on Tuesday. Just getting a few things downloaded here. Hey, Nakara, what's up? I'm feeling better. How are you doing? How are you doing today? All right, I'm going to take a second. What's up, Lena? Oh, hold on. I dropped my little owl. So I have I mean, I mentioned it before, but I have ADHD. And so one of the things that I have to do to help me focus is actually like play with something in my hand. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like the best way for me to listen and absorb information. And it's not that I'm not paying attention, but I just need something to fiddle with my hands, kind of quietly under my desk. I do it with meetings and stuff like that. And I know it sounds crazy, but like as long as it's not anything that's distracting to other people, it's not an issue. And so I've got like a little fidget cube here that I mess around with usually during classes. And then I have this Lego owl from come on, you gonna focus? Yeah, from like a Harry Potter set that I don't know why I play with it, but it's just here and I just mess around with it because it's cute. I'm like obsessed. I love Lego kits. I could sit and play with Legos and like put a Lego set together for hours and not be like I'll want to complete it all in one go, which is a lot on my back. So I'm like sitting on the floor usually when I do it. Um and I don't know. I just one of them like fell. Maybe I lost it or something, and then just found it again. And instead of putting it on its in the appropriate spot it needs to go, I just have it here on my desk. Um, so usually when I drop something, that's what I'm dropping. It's like my little fidget cube or something that I've got in my hands that I'm messing around with. But I appreciate you guys and your patience and stuff last week, especially because, or I'm sorry, last class. Um, just some weird internet thing. You know, we ended up getting it back later. And it took a little while for the video to process, but it is up on the YouTube channel so you guys can watch it and see all of your feedback that I gave you with your participation questions. Because I showed you guys how to do some techniques as well in that class. So definitely worth watching because you'll need to, you know, there'll be informational techniques to use for not only the custom 3 scene animation project, but also for this upcoming project, the Colorscope, which I'm going to introduce today. So we're going to go over anyone who has submitted their custom 3 scene animation. We're going to review it. We're going to give feedback on that. And then we'll start introducing the new project. And before with this project, usually it's kind of shoved into a very short amount of time. Right now, we literally have, let's see how many classes we have left. We've got one next week, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see here. Come on. 4, 5, 6 classes. And the 7th class is going to be like a real review. We're going to be reviewing your final project. And so I want to take this time to really go through this next project and make sure that all of your guys' stuff, when we get to the final project with the reel, that everything's like nice and touched up and polished and ready to go for your final projects. So what is the biggest Lego structure that I built was probably the Chamber of Secrets. I like to collect the Harry Potter ones, and then I also have Star Wars, like I have a BD1 because BD1's my favorite droid. And he's up there, but I usually get lighting kits that go with it too, so those can be fun to add on to the Lego thing. Nakara, which by the way, which project are you're starting your custom 3 scene one? Are there if that's the one you're starting, are there any techniques you kind of want to know? Because we can go over that today. So yeah, you guys, I mean, like 6 classes. That's all we have left, like 3 more weeks. So I definitely want to give you guys the time to put into this next project because this one takes a little bit longer. And then this way you guys can dedicate the proper amount of time to the certain stages in the process. I think this is done downloading now. Do you guys like stuff like Legos? I feel like a perpetual child, like a child. Like I'll never be an adult that has adult hobbies. My hobbies are always going to be things like building Legos, playing video games, drawing, making things, crafting. Like that's just what I like to do. Those kind of things. Maybe for some rigging, I've been starting in Adobe Animate for most of it. Okay. Well, if you think of like any questions then while we're going through class, like if you're like, "Hey, how do I do this?" Like what kind of rigging are you talking about? I did talk about I don't know if you were in the live stream for when we discussed Lena had asked a question on how to like rig up an animal like a cat. And I went through that very bare bones kind of version on how to like piece the parts together. And rigging is the same concept over any program, right? So it's just the concept of linking certain parts together in specific spots that control other parts, right? That's it's the same thing inside of Cinema 4D, Blender, inside of any of these Adobe character animator programs and stuff. And so just like understanding the concept in general is going to help you to do that. You might have to figure out different ways to do it using, based on navigating whatever program you're in, but I believe I was, but there was a lot to it. There was a lot in that class because we talked about I did this parallax scene for Keith because he had asked me about that, so I showed how to do a parallax scene for you guys. And this was in the recording that I had done on Tuesday's class. So on Tuesday's class, we went over a few things. Not only I did the parallax here, I did how to like animate a tree. You said that, okay, Lena says, I was curious about the rigging the animal because you saw the student dinosaur example and it looks seamlessly connected to the body. Let's pull that up. Let's look at that here. 1 second. Okay, let's play that.
The Argentinosaurus was the largest animal to ever walk the planet. It lived during the late Cretaceous.
So, where this, let me keep playing it real quick.
Period, about 90 to 100 million years ago in
Okay, so, yeah, let me look at this one.
South America. The Argentinosaurus.
What the student did is he drew the legs as one singular unit. So there is no separation. So normally what I showed with the cat was to separate like the thighs from the calf area, the lower part of the leg, and then the foot, right? That's how I had it. And then the thigh was connected to the body, and then the second half of the leg was connected to the thigh, and then the foot connected to the second part of the leg. That's traditionally how you would do that, right? And what he did is a simpler version, which works just fine. In fact, it really sells it for these very simplistic short animations, especially because we don't do any character stuff really in this class. And so you want to think about like what skills you know versus what skills you need to know. And this is also going to apply to our next project. So what he did based on what he knew is he just drew the leg as one whole unit and then put the anchor point up at the top of the leg and connected that to the body using parenting. And so that's how this looks really seamless. And then when he drew this, he drew the legs separately with it looks like he probably used something like Procreate or Photoshop because it's more of a level of detail than you would see inside of a vector-based program because for some reason they just make it harder to add like a lot of textural detail into vector programs. But what he did is he drew this whole leg with the stroke and everything on its own separate layer. And so, and then it looks seamless there. Gosh, every time I keep hitting escape to get out of the notation thing, it makes this smaller. And then this part, this section right here just doesn't have the stroke on it. So it's just all gray. And that's why it matches up with the body color and looks seamless. But when you play it, when I play it.
Saurus weighed over one. It lived during the late Cretaceous period, about 90 to 100 million years ago in South America.
So he did use, he did separate out the legs.
The Argentinosaurus weighed over 100 tons and could reach over 100.
Yeah. He separated out the legs and stuff like I showed you guys how to do. What he most likely did was just put on each layer an outline around the outside of the leg and not around the entire thing. So that it looks seamless when it's being animated. But he did a really good job with this.
It lived during the late Cretaceous period, about 90 to 100 million years ago in South America. The Argentinosaurus weighed over 100 tons.
Yeah, because that's not the bend. I know in one of the classes we talked about using the pin tool, the puppet tool, and this is rigging. You can tell the difference. The puppet tool is more of the puppet tool is better for things like tails, tentacles, kind of things that have the seamless wavy thing, the wavy dude that's in front of all the car places. The puppet pin tool is good for that. This is rigging, and he did the same technique that we talked about in class for the cat. And which was this technique here. Let me comps. Here. Which was like the rigging that we did here, right? And so when he drew this, when he illustrated these, like the leg parts, he would have had the stroke around this section and this section of the leg and probably not around these parts here, right? Or he masked them out. Um, there's a couple tricks you can do, right? You can mask them out, or you can attach a shape layer to it, which is the same color as the body, and it will look like it's just like doesn't have a stroke in that part. But in reality, it does. You're just hiding it with a shape layer that you have like connected with parenting to the leg. So, I mean, that was an ambitious project for him. He took it on and he did a really good job because he really just focused more on that, and also did he did levels of details in his scene that looked really good, but there's really not a ton of animation to the first scene. I mean, there's the leaves that move across it, the dinosaurs walking. And here the dinosaur just continues walking and the buses move, so position changes. So he was smart about how he did everything. And then this was probably the most besides the walk cycle, one of the more detailed animations that he did with the tree branch, snapping the leaves off and eating the leaves here. But he set some time aside to do that. So but Nakara, let me show you real quick. So with an animal, this was very, like I said, rough. I had created the foot was a separate layer, the lower leg and the upper leg were separate layers. And you can see here that the foot, let me see. Oh. The foot layer here was connected to the lower leg. Come on. Was connected to the lower leg. The lower leg was connected to the upper leg. The upper leg layer was connected to the body layer. The head layer was connected to the neck layer. Come on now. The neck to the body, because the body is the driving force here. The ear was connected to the head, because you want, like, if the head moves, the ear is going to move on its own. And the tail was connected to the body as well. And so now, when I go to, if I want to move the entire leg of the cat, I would just move the upper leg and it's going to move everything along with it. And if I want to move the body of the cat, everything is going to move along with it. If I rotate the tail will rotate on its own. If I want to rotate the ears or make the ears twitch, I can do that way. If I want to change like the rotation of the head, I could rotate that and the ear's going to go along with it because of the parenting that's there. And then the neck, if I rotate the neck, the head and the ear will go along with that. But then again, like I said, everything's mainly parented to the body. So if I change the position of the body, it will change everything else that goes along with it. And so just kind of breaking down mentally or writing it down on like a sticky note or something like that of which parts you have to illustrate on their own separate layers, like which parts are going to move, right? And then where those parts are connected to on the body based on how, it's going to animate, right? So like if I were drawing something like this and the nose was connected, if I had the nose parented to the body, when I would move my head around, my nose would stay in one place. It wouldn't move along with my head. And that's not what you want. You want the facial features or anything on the head moves with the head. So you have to parent any of the features of the head or the face to the head. And then the head is driven by the neck. So you have to parent the head to the neck. And the neck is driven by the body. So the neck gets parented to the body. So as you start breaking these things down, it's like untangling a knot, right? And just kind of figuring out where everything goes, or a necklace. And you have to figure out which thing goes to where as you're like pulling it apart. And so you kind of want to dissect the movement of whatever it is you're building. If it were something really simple like a jellyfish, the tentacles would all be just, or like the little stingers would all be connected to the body. That's it. That's a simple rig, right? So, the concept is the same across all of your programs, all of your Adobe programs, any animation program. And it's just like really knowing how to break those things down and then how to animate them. And then not only that, I had posted in here for you guys to watch if you want to on the side the option to use the Duick Angela rigging script, which also has, so it has bipeds, which are people, and then quadrupeds, which are animals. Rigs is already set up. So you just basically, it's like a skeleton, right? You have your objects on their own separate layers broken down already. And then you basically are saying this part of the skeleton that's created by the script, the rigging script, because this will create the skeletons for you. You say, I want this part connected to this part of the illustration. And so you just link everything together. Again, rigging, parenting, and then Jake in Motion. This is a great tutorial on how to do like a walk cycle of a biped, so a human. But there's also options if you want to know how to do like animals and quadrupeds. You could just YouTube that and be like, how to animate a dog using Duick Basil. Or Duick Angela. I apologize. It used to be called Duick Basil, but then with the upgrade, they changed it to a different activist name, and so now this newest version is the Duick Angela. But it's a great script. You can download the script here. It's free. You guys don't have to pay for any of that. And then here's that tutorial to watch. Do I have any advice for drawing efficiently? I'm still in the drawing process. To not make your, I do. The background can have a little bit more detail than the actual objects that are moving. And because I say this because what happens is the objects when they're moving, the level of detail in it starts to get more complex when having to animate something with a lot of texture on it, especially if there's a lot of crazy movements. So if we look at, let's see, cartoons. Let me just Google cartoons. Let's look at this. Looney Tunes. Okay. Great example right here. Let's see if I can. Ooh, this is an animation cell. Actually, so, they used to animate with these things called cells, right? And so it was it was like a clear plastic sheet, and they would draw these characters on the sheets, and the sheets, when you line up and you can move them around, and they sell animation cells, and this one is for $1,500. So, but they're really cool to own. Usually you can get them framed, and a lot of studios will sell their cells, the animation cells, just because they don't need them anymore and they're just sitting somewhere in storage, so might not make money off of them. When it comes to level of detail, things in the background that are not moving can be more detailed than the things that are moving. Like I said, when you have more detail on the objects that are moving, you have to think about those changing as well. So if you look at all of these characters, they don't really have highlights or shadows drawn on them. They're pretty much solid illustrations, right? It's a stroke and a fill color. And there's some details obviously with like the bows and the little weapons and whatever they have that it completes the character itself, but you don't see any levels of detail like texture on their shirts or on themselves. You don't see the shadows, the highlights. It's just very flat looking versus these backgrounds, which are a really high level of detail. Look at the mountain here, and the background has lots of level of detail with like trees to convey foliage, or these buildings which have gradients painted onto them, and there's shadows, and there's kind of highlights, and there's gradients, and all this other kind of stuff happening. Especially in the ground, you can see a bunch of texture. It's gotten easier to animate some of those things now, but like, don't overcomplicate stuff when it comes to illustrating your assets for these projects. Look at how simple everything is as far as the examples, right? These are a little bit more detailed, but it's just, I mean, this person probably took one leaf, duplicated it multiple times, and then just maybe drew one or two leaves and duplicated it, and then maybe change the color a little bit from each one to the other, right?
The
So
tropical
changing the shape and the
rainforests
color.
of the Congo River Basin.
And then this stuff in the background, it looks like a high level of detail, but it's just because of adding a little bit of texture into there. And so these plants right here, one plant has been drawn, but they just duplicated it a bunch of times to help in the illustration. The trees, I mean, these aren't realistic, high detailed. We're not like, I don't know if you guys have heard of trompe-l'oeil, which is a French technique to draw something extremely realistic. Like it can jump off of the page. We're not doing that here. We're just drawing things to kind of convey that the trees have texture, and that is that, right? Two colors, some squiggles and in brush marks on between, and that was it. The background is just kind of a shape of some kind of bushes or trees in the background, and then another one here. And so you can have a little bit more level of detail on these, but then when we go into the shrew, right, the shrew's very simplistic. There is no, I mean, there's some gradients on here, which is perfectly fine because of the way this is rigged up, but it's not like super detailed. There's not a bunch of textures or anything added on it. It's fairly simplistic. This one here, this is obviously a higher level of detail because this individual chose to draw a skeleton. And so it's just picking your battles on what kind of level of detail you want to use, but there's no shading and stuff, so you don't have to do all of that, right? And you can always go back into it and do that kind of stuff later, especially if you're taking advantage of dynamic linking within the program. So if you're working within Illustrator and Photoshop and you're bringing those assets into After Effects, and you're not creating shape layers out of them, you're leaving them as the layers that they are, then if you make any changes in those documents, it'll update into your After Effects project. So that's my advice for when it comes to illustrating for animation. And it kind of just depends on how much time you have. There's always this juxtaposition or this measurement of how much time versus like what the scope of your project is. And you don't want to spend, like, if you have the scope of the project and your deadline is short, you're not going to have all the time to add all of that kind of detail and stuff you need. So it's like giving and taking. I explain to everyone all the time. There's a triangle, and on each side of the triangle there are things that you want, right? Like, so if you're getting a video made or you're making a video, you can do it cheap, fast, and what's like quality, right? And you can't have all three sides. You can only have two sides. So you can do it cheap and fast, but the quality is going to be lower. So you're giving and taking. There's always a compromise when it comes to it. You can have the quality and cheaply done, but that's kind of not a thing. You don't really get that kind of quality you don't get like a good quality video very cheap. But it might take a little bit longer, or that person might have to, they're like, I can work on it when I have time, but you're going to have to be flexible on a deadline. And in this case, the thing is the deadline, right? We want to get it done within a certain amount of time, and the constraints of the project. And so you just have to think, what am I doing here? What's worth it? Where do I give and take with this project? All right, let's kind of view the ones that we have done so far. I'll close this out of the way. Close this. Good question, so. Let's look at Jade's.
All plants need to go through processes to mature. The first step is to sow the seed to germinate. But for the plant to fully mature, they also need soil, water, light, and human care. The tree will eventually mature, flower, and bear fruit.
That's great. Cool. Really good start on this, Jade. Let's bring this into, actually, let's open up After Effects again and bring it in there so we can break everything down, and then I can give you feedback. Really good job overall, Jade. I think the information was good. The voiceover, I think you could just turn the volume of the music down just a touch. I think it competes a little bit with your voiceover, but overall, you did a really good job. We'll give you some feedback here. Let's import these projects. I think the timing of everything was great. Save, import. All right.
All plants need to go through processes to mature. The first step is to sow the seed to germinate. But for the plant to fully mature, they also need soil, water, light, and human care.
Okay, I think that we could improve. Let's start scene by scene. This one I talked about on Tuesday, how to animate the tree using trim paths, which I think would be very beneficial here. And then what you could do is have maybe the seed, and you could always, so I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to kind of zoom in here and have it be like a transition to your next scene. But if you're going to do that, you're going to need to have it zoom into a shape that's more similar to one of these leaves. And then what will happen is you'll zoom all the way into that shape until the color fills up the screen, and then it will become the transition for the next scene. I think right here you're doing the scale and opacity change. But I think we could work on this becoming more of a seamless, it's a good start on it, and we could just further improve it by maybe creating a shape that's very similar to the seed in here, same color. And so when we're zooming in all the way to that seed shape on this, the color fades out. It's almost like it's zooming in all the way into that color, and then it will create that seamless transition here. This is neat. It goes into the soil.
To germinate. But
this is really cool. The growth here of the, I think the timing of the growth of this looks really good. And I actually think that this is where you could benefit from the animating of the tree. You could start with the trim paths on this, and then as it's growing, maturing, this could change colors. So you can animate the color of the stroke, right? Because the stroke, let me get to that. I literally had it labeled tree, and I just like clicked through everything. I'm like, ooh. So it can start really thin and small as the little seedling, right? And it could start green. And then as it's getting bigger, you can animate the width of the stroke, kind of like this happens. And then it can also change in color. So you could animate. So it's just kind of stacking these different animation settings together. And for each one of these, you could go into the stroke and animate the color of the stroke here, because the stroke has a time, has a stopwatch next to it, and then you'll just start with this color and then eventually move it into the other one. And I think that would look really neat. That's more of a time consuming thing, but I think that it would sell this animation really well, and it would look really cool. And then also with the transition from night to day, you could, instead of doing a fade,
fully mature.
you could just extend the fade of the background out a little bit further. And all you have to fade is really because do the mountains, you can maybe animate the color change of the mountains here at the same time that the background's fading from this dark night color with the stars and the moon into like your bright day colors. And if you just animate that fade a little bit slower, if we extend the time of that fade, it'll look cooler, because right now I think it's just happening a little too quickly. And it's just a little bit kind of flashy looking. It looks like it's flashing because it goes from really dark to bright. And so just extending that fade out a little bit longer will
They also need
help that.
soil, water, light, and human care. The tree will
These are good. I like how you have little animations happening inside of these. I would mask the objects out into the shape so that you don't see them moving into the shape from off this area. So all you'll do is you'll animate this happening into its own composition, and then you'll mask that composition off, that pre-comp off, and animate that.
Will eventually mature, flower, and bear fruit.
How do I mean? What do I mean by that? So like, let's take this. Let's say this was its own little circle. I'll add in a new background, solid. Okay, perfect. Light blue works. And I'm going to shift control pre-compose this. Pre-comp. And let's say that this is your background. Let's bring this in here. And let's just kind of move this over so you get this happening in this section. What I would do, let me turn this back on, is let's say you've got your soil scene or your hand scene or something happening inside of this pre-comp. You're just going to click on the pre-comp layer. You're going to go up here to the ellipse tool, and you're going to hold down shift, or you can have it look more like an oval if you want to. We can move this over a little bit. Grabbing the pen tool. The animation will still continue within that because it's pre-comped, but now I have it kind of just masked out into the shape of a circle. And then I can animate this pre-comp layer into the scene. So let's say I wanted it smaller so that it fits more with the other things. I can scale this down. And then I could animate this from off screen using position. And then move the playhead a little bit further here. And move it on screen. And then quickly just do a simple easing.
And human care.
And then whatever animation is happening within here, let's say I'd have a looping animation like your hands or the soil, and that way it's not coming from outside of this little bubble area like we see here, right? I can specifically see it there in that part. I think the hands aren't a big deal, but the soil one, as the soil comes in, it's obviously coming in from off screen. This isn't a pre-comp, so we just want to pre-compose that and do a full, have this be like its own separate composition and then draw the mask over the pre-comp layer. Now, if you still want it to have that fuzzy edge, you can absolutely do that under the mask settings here, and you can just feather that out a little bit. So it still has this kind of fuzzier edge happening.
Mature flower.
But it's still,
effort.
nothing will show up outside of that mask. So I would do that for this section here. Let's go ahead and continue playing this.
Care. The tree will eventually mature, flower, and bear fruit.
I would just, so it's going to mature, flower, and bear fruit. That's really cool. Yeah, you could have these falling to the ground, instead of just fading off screen, because there's a lot of fading happening. So maybe just a little versatility and and some of the smaller animations would be nice to see. So those maybe instead of, like the scaling of the apples is good. And then maybe the little flowers fall to the ground. Let me just play the rest of that. Yeah, and then just maybe a fading. You're going to want the music to fade at the end here so that it fades off screen, and then you can fade to black if you want to. But other than that, really good start on this Jade. Really good start. All right, let's look at Jesus's.
The sunflower is one of the most well-known flowers all around the world and is capable of growing over 30 feet tall.
Ooh, look at that bounce.
Peter Schiffer. One sunflower is able to carry up to 2,000 seeds and could grow to maturity between 70 to 100 days. In Japan, a tsunami hit a nuclear power plant which led to millions of sunflowers being planted to absorb the radiant toxins. How cool is that?
All right, good start on here, Jesus. I think that there are, let me just make this bigger. I think you did a really good start on this. I don't know, I think we edited your voiceover, so I think this is an older script. Because we talked about the script. This is the previous script that you had. So you want to update that.
Is one of the most well-known flowers all around the world.
This part's really cool. I would think it would be even a better looking scene if you had a bunch more of these sunflowers in the background. And what you could do to make sure that this one specifically stands out is you can have, you can take these, you can duplicate them, you can add them all in the back and organize them. And then you could pre-compose those. And you can add let's see here. Let's do that with the tree pre-comp. Let's say I wanted a whole bunch of trees in the background. Let's throw this one on the top first. These ones here. 7, 6. Let's just move them out of the way. Maybe the variety of these are different in scale. So maybe I'd take all these and scale them down separately. Maybe there's a variety of scales happening, so they're not all the same. Ooh. Let's pick a different one. There we go. So they're not right next to each other necessarily. Right, but they're all the same color, so how do we differentiate these? I would pre-compose this. Forest pre-comp. And I would probably add a curves option to this. so that I can kind of just drop them down in saturation or bring them up brighter. Probably drop them down a little bit lower. Maybe add a little blur to these. Just very slight. You don't want a ton of blur because these are all kind of close to each other. You can even do this to the individual, like little small groups of individual ones, so that you have even more of a variety into your group of different objects or the same objects. Let's see, what was I looking at? Blur. Let's pick a Gaussian blur. I'm going to throw that under the forest. Maybe let's do 2. Let's increase that a little bit more. Probably 15 will, yeah. 13 to 15 looks pretty good here. And so now we're focusing like this is happening. You could offset the animations here. So if I went into the forest, maybe I'd offset these a little bit. So nothing's all happening at the same time. So when I go back here, everything's at different, obviously the animations, because if I select all these and hit U, all the animations start at different times, but you want to make sure that if it's not animating from off screen, you want to make sure that the layer starts all the way at the front so it doesn't just kind of pop up randomly. Kind of like they all just popped it there. You want them to all look like they're growing. And you could have them, they're all at different times now. They're all starting at different times. You can adjust the timing of some things. But I think that would be beneficial to this scene because you never just see one sunflower growing. You always see massive fields of sunflowers growing. But I will say that is a great looking bounce that you have to that sunflower. That is a springy looking bounce. It's very elastic looking, so really good job not only on the keyframing of that, but the easing of those keyframes as well.
If you're Hans Peter Schiffer.
This part here, I don't want to see like a photo. I don't want to see a photo in here because it's jarring to this kind of stuff. Maybe you could find a way to illustrate this and let's see. Said his name was Hans Peter Schiffer. The picture in the middle of it is just too jarring and it doesn't fit the rest of the animation. What you could do is increase this one. If you show it in comparison with a bunch of other sunflowers, it will sell the height of that. So maybe there's a bunch of little sunflowers here at the bottom, and this continues to get even taller. So it grows even higher. And you could even draw like you can use a trim paths to have a line that goes up and it just says 30 feet, right? Because when I looked it up, it said it was 30 feet tall. Let's play this and hear what you say.
Once Hans Peter Schiffer.
Yeah, I think that if you do that, like showing some kind of measurement system along with a bunch of other ones that gives a comparison of size and height, that this scene would be better. And then just get rid of this image because, nope. Unless it's part of a texture of the object, that doesn't make sense to be in there. It's a good fact, but yeah. This is neat, this next scene, but you have it fading. It fades into black, so you're going to have to make sure that this scene here is not fading on at the same time. What's happening is you have one here. Let's draw it like this. You have one scene here. Right? And then oh, Oh, shoot. That's not what I want to do. Let's see. New solid layer. You have another scene here. And you're fading off. Let's reorganize them. You've got an opacity change here. That's happening. And then this one is fading on here. So it's starting at 0. And it's fading up to 100. Come on. But you can see what happens is it's fading to black because right here, they're at 0%. There is no, there's nothing on there on screen because there should be something under here. So all you have to do is take this one and move it there to match up these opacity keyframe changes. And so when one fades off, the other fades on at the exact same time. The timing of the keyframes is exactly the same. Or what you could do is just not even have an opacity change on the second one and just leave it at 100%. And so then all this top scene does is just fade away to reveal this scene. So there's 2 different options you can use there, but you need to fix that. Let's continue playing
One
here.
sunflower is able to carry up to 2,000 seeds and could grow.
That was cool. And I love how it lands. That was really neat. Like following this down, animating the position changes here, following that down. Or what you did is you animated the sunflower up. Just make sure that you throw the blur that because you have motion blur, which is good on the flower, but you want to make sure that it's added on the entire flower, not just the petals, but also onto like the center of the flower too, because you have it on this seed as well. But that needs to be blurry also. Then it falls into here.
To maturity between 70 to 100 days.
All right, that's not bad. Maybe you could fade out. I feel like the maturity from 70 to 100 days. How could we visualize that? I get the calendar. There might be more of an abstract way that we can visualize that. Maybe you show. Yeah, because you can't do text on screen. Maybe you can find a way to do like these kind of flipping up. So very similar to the animation that Janelle did with this one, where instead of having the 3 calendars, you have the 1 calendar. And this...
There is estimated to be over...
maybe a bunch of different pages just move up. So what she did is she created the book and then these separate pages and kind of like the butterfly wings, made them 3D layers and then just animated the rotation. And you can do the same thing here as well. That would work, right? You could just kind of flip these up one at a time. And you don't have to have 70 to 100. It would be okay. Or the other thing that you could do is you can make little tick marks going into each box. So like X's or little check marks just showing up on each box. And you could do that by creating a little check mark. Let's do that here. Let's change the fill to a stroke. Solid stroke. Okay. Increase that. Let's drop the probably red. I am going to duplicate this. And I think Belle said that there was a way to Maybe not in that. Free transform form. Oh, it would have to be under here. So what I would do, since it's all on the same, if they were on separate layers, you could right click there, go to transform, and flip on horizontal. But because I drew them both on the same layer, all I'll do is go into the transform of that second shape. And then under the scale, I'll unlink them and type -100 here. And then link them back up. And they will be in, it'll just mirror that. And then I can take this one and just kind of, oops, let's see here. If I grab this shape specifically, and I can move that into place. And you can animate trim paths if you want to, or since it'd be going really quickly, I would just duplicate this layer a bunch of times, have these kind of in order so that they go across your calendar, across your calendar days. Let's move these kind of centered. Obviously, you want to put the anchor points in the appropriate place, but what you could do is kind of just offset these layers so that they don't show up until a certain amount of time, like that. Let me kind of hide these ones. Obviously, I did it backwards. You would want to do it forwards, but you can have it marking like 70 to 100 days. You don't have to have 70 to 100 of them on there. That is ridiculous. That's a lot. So what I would do is just put like one of these little X marks in each one of these, and you could just animate them. I would do one single calendar, and then I would also maybe change as well the background a little bit so it's not so brightly saturated. So also you can, like, similar thing that I did with the trees and the multiple trees in one thing, either throwing a levels on there or using the curves adjustment, you could do that, or just kind of fading that background a little bit and having like some kind of solid layer behind it. Or you can add an adjustment layer on top. What do I mean by that? You can take, let me just delete these. Actually, let's keep those on top. Let's show this layer here. Right here. Let's just delete this opacity change. And what you could do is add a new adjustment layer and bring that adjustment layer over top of the sunflower scene, but below your calendars. So I did that here below my X marks, but above my scene here. And then we could add, that's where we could add the levels adjustment using color correction, adding levels, and kind of making that a little bit darker if you want to, like animating this part. You can also do that with the curves, or you can do hue and saturation. You can animate that as well. So you can change the saturation and just drop down the saturation a bit so it almost looks black and white, which would look cool too. So we could focus more on what's happening in the foreground versus what's going on in the background. So a couple different ideas there for you. But I would update that. And then the same thing with the opacity change here. You need to update the where the opacity keyframes are to reveal this.
A nuclear power plant which led to millions of sunflowers being planted to absorb the radiant toxins.
All right, that's cool. This one,
in Japan, a tsunami hit a nuclear power plant which led to millions of sunflowers being planted to absorb the radiant toxins.
This scene, a nuclear power plant was destroyed because of a tsunami. So I would also maybe color in this part here. Let's delete these so we can see. we can create a wave animation or like a wave looking thing. It's not going to look like a tidal wave, right? Because that was a tsunami wave. But what you could do is you can take let's do it here with this solid layer. Actually, you have to do with the shape layer. So let's new shape layer. Let's grab this. Let's make sure that the fill is on. Okay. Let's shut the stroke off. Okay. Let's draw a big giant shape and change the color to something that is water. Let's move this kind of like this. And you could use the turbulent displace like I showed before. You can also use the wave warp. If I throw that onto this layer. And then what you notice is that there's these little waves happening up at the top. And you can always increase the height of these waves and increase the width of these waves so that it looks like an actual tsunami here. And then I think what we have to do is we have to pin the bottom, because right now what's happening is it's creating the wave within the composition, and we don't want that to show this part on the bottom. So what you have to do is come over here to pinning, and you're just going to pin all edges. And that way it'll pin it to the side and forward. And then when you can move this shape, right, we can extend the size of the shape. Let's hit scale here and increase the size of it here. And then just animate the position across the screen. And you've got this kind of, oh, actually you don't, with the wave warp, you don't even have to change the position to animate the position. It automatically creates a wave animation for you here. And so what you can do is you can just lower this wave speed down if you don't want it so fast. So 0.25 will slow that down significantly versus like increasing this to 5, which would be really fast, right? Almost like hair waving in the wind, or like a flag waving in the wind, or shirt or something like that. You can also change the direction that the wave is heading. So I would put it in the opposite one, since that's like how you have this one moving over. But I think that would sell it possibly a little bit more. Or just like a different option for you. You can keep this, but I just wanted you guys to have like another option on how to animate water. The other thing, let's see here.
To millions of sunflowers being planted to absorb the radiant toxins.
That looks cool. I think what you did here is there's like so this green layer, you could just animate the color change here of that one dark green layer to this bright green layer, and that way you won't have this tiny, because we have this little transparency where it can see where the layers aren't perfectly adding up. And those are the little details that we start to break down when we start watching these videos and getting more and more in depth, when you guys go beyond just the animation part and we're looking at design now and how you're maybe putting these things together. So just maybe animate the fill color, make sure that these are both lined up perfectly.
To absorb the radiant toxins.
That's really cool. The toxins, I know that's for a fact that they plant sunflowers to absorb radiation from the soil. So that's a really cool fact. Let's go here. I think, how did you have them? Opacity is cool, but maybe you could add in also like a scaling on top of the opacity for each one of these, and then offset them so they start coming in at like different times and not just all at once.
The radiant toxins. How cool is that?
All right. And then just extend the end scene so that we can see your name on there a little bit longer and understand who did it. And then also your voiceover is really quiet. So then in order to offset that, you need to drop down the volume of the music, like maybe 1 or 2 notches. So between 3 and 6 decibels, you're going to want to drop that down. Or possibly increase the voiceover, but that one's, I really don't want you guys, oh, sorry, increasing like the volume of the VO. I'd rather have you decreasing the volume of the music. Great start on this, so Jesus, very close. And so let's go to the other one. We have Keith. By the way, Keith, I did see the illustration. I don't know if you're in class, if you're watching right now, but I saw your illustration of the birds, and that was great. I enjoyed it very much. So let's play this. Not this anymore. Sick of looking at that. Let's go here. All right.
The Spix macaw, better known as the blue macaw, was officially announced extinct in the wild in 2019 by the IUCN. Even before their extinction, they were the rarest type of macaw in the wild. After centuries of deforestation and illegal hunting, it sped the process of extinction. Currently, there's approximately 177 Spix macaws in captivity.
Cool. Really good start on this, Keith. I think that, what's up, Keith, in the chat? Don't be nervous. I think that it looks really great. I think you did a good job. What was that? Get out. And this is funny. I have to ask you to take that out though, because like for a job purpose, you don't want that to happen, but that made me laugh. Okay. I'm not gonna lie. That was pretty funny. It's a really cute dog. Did you draw that? Did you illustrate this little guy? First of all, illustrations are beautiful here. Very painterly looking, which I really enjoy. Overall, the video saturation is all the same. So the background, especially in this scene, everything's about like at 50% on the color scale, right? So what do I mean by that? When you look at these, if I were to grab this and bring up this color picker, let me bring this here. When, here you have your hue changing. Let's explain this. Here's the shift in your hues, right? And so you can pick from anywhere like this kind of pinkish red all the way down to this more of an orange red. And you can pick anywhere on that line that you want to go. Here is like your saturation options, right? And so we have 0 saturation here, 100% saturation here. And then these are adding your hue into it. So at 0% saturated, like fully saturated, and then all the way to the blue color, you've got like this really bright colored blue. And then down here, you're going to have this really deep, deep, deep blue, almost black color. So if I grab this color picker and I bring this over here, this color and this color, they're all the same. Black, fully black, both there. This one here is going to be fully saturated of that color blue that you picked. So it's like 100% into that color. Now you want to pick colors that are kind of all across this scale, right? Right now, what I'm seeing is that all of your colors, or a majority of your colors, are kind of along this line right here throughout throughout this area. So even if this were green, your green colors are still kind of within this range, right around like between here and here. They're kind of bouncing in between this range here. Even with, so you had the blue, even with the red color, it's very much similar to these areas here. And you kind of want to move them, kind of like you did with your macaw and having the different colored blues, just kind of around in different spots, right? Especially this background. The background's a very similar color to the rest of everything else. And instead of having to change everything else, I would change the color of the background and drop it down to a lighter colored blue, like a less saturated blue. So if I were to look at that color picker again, great. Let me go here. If I were looking here and you have kind of like this blue happening, like this one right here, I would bring this kind of back in maybe around this area, kind of floating in between this zone right here. So you've got kind of a very lightly tinted blue, but it's not going to compete with everything else, especially like this gray is on that same kind of horizontal line that I drew there. And so it competes, your eye competes to kind of read it a little bit. Also, I'm like looking here, there's enough like saturation on that, but maybe this instead of gray is like a dark blue. So funny story, I wanted the macaw to fall apart to turn into the map, but it took so long and I had other ideas, but I had to restart. That's okay, right? That is a very complex idea to have. Because you would have to have the shapes that were falling apart of the macaw to match up to the shapes of the map. And that's a lot of work. And you just don't really have, like I was talking about in the beginning of class, knowing the scope of the project versus the amount of time that you have available for the project really plays into what kind of ideas you can execute and what kind you can't. And so with that idea, it's a really cool idea, but it's hard to execute in the short amount of time that you guys have to animate this project. You could essentially do like a masking technique to do that, but I think that you have like, there's not a bad thought to this. There's just needs to be a little bit more detail in here. So if let's go like from scene to scene, I talked about the saturation of the color so that you can update that, because like this color right here and this color are very similar, right? And so I would just drop this down because this background overall is competing with other stuff, but this is really cool. Let's kind of break down scene to scene. I like this scene. I didn't get that. Shut it, Siri. I think your voiceover can come in right about here, like within the first half second to like within the first second, you could bring in your VO and even scale this up.
Macaw, better known as the blue macaw, was officially announced extinct in the wild in 2019.
That was cool. I like that. I like this transition that you have of the text moving in. I am okay with this text is okay because it's explaining. It's not like saying exactly what's happening on screen, right? It's lending itself to it, but it's not like writing down everything. And the ICU or IUCN here, it's giving a little bit of context to that, which you can't really illustrate out necessarily. So I'm okay with the text on screen for that. With this, again, like what I would say, bring that VO in, bring this bird up a little bit quicker, this icon. And then also you should add a blinking animation here. So you could do that with a couple different ways. One way being, let's go into this first scene here. Let me delete this. We have the eye. You could how do you have that drawn? Is that an was this inside of like Procreate or Photoshop, or did you do this inside of Illustrator? Because if you use it inside Illustrator, you could right click and convert it to an object and then do the blink in a different way. Well, you mentioned last class you didn't know IUCN, so I figured I should add the text for organization so people understood. Yeah, that's fine. I show a couple different ways on how to do a blinking animation on this one, right? Where is that? Here. Like towards the end of the video, I talk about how to create eye blinks. And so I used illustrations. I made a circle and break it down using the other shapes to cut. Okay. Yeah, then you should be able to do that. I go over how to create the eye blinks in this one at the end. So you could create an eye blink and then just loop that with the looping expression. And you'll have this cool looking eye blink that happens. So, I mean, I could just show you real quick too. You can either do it, or the scale doesn't really sell it as well. If I were to add, let's add a new, oh, wrong one. Let's duplicate this. Scale this down a little bit. Change this color to black. So it's like your eye that you have drawn, the bird eye. You could either use the scale and you can animate this scale, wrong one. This change like this. It works, but it's not that great. I just don't like it that much because it's obvious that it's a scale animation. What you can do is a little bit of a trick, and it's without using ellipses. What you do is you come in here and you take a rectangle, and let's change the fill color to this one here. And you create a rectangle or a square. And you go into, oh, even better, on this position thing, you increase the roundness to 100% and it creates a circle for you. And then we can duplicate this and change that color to the black. And where is it? Change the scale of that one. Ooh, that's more of a cat eye. I don't know why I unlinked it, but there. Can do it like that. What if I made an outer layer eyelid that does a simple up and down motion to give the eyes blinking illusion? You could do that. That's fine. You could use that to kind of mask the eye out. This is just another way to do an eye blink that works a little bit better, is using that rectangle and then changing the roundness, because now I think it's not that. It's not the scale. It is the size. You animate the size. So you change this down. You animate this down. The size of it, and it looks more like a blink, like a better blinking. So I would keyframe that here, unlink these properties because you're just wanting it to change in one different way. Blinks happen kind of fast, so probably only 3 frames, and then increase this all the way down to 0. And then back up again, move another 3 frames and copy this keyframe. Oop. Copy paste. And then you would do the same to this one at the same timing. So under rectangle path, you go to the size and you'll keyframe, go into the center, 0. And so now you have like this interesting, I've never done it with 2 like layers in the same one, but it creates a super fast blink that looks more realistic than just using the scale. Yeah, see, it looks good that way. You can also, like I said, you can use the eyelids. You can create eyelids if you want to, but this super quick, it makes it a lot easier. And then what you can do is if you take this and you want to kind of dictate the timing of it. So you would take these and copy, and let's say you want it to blink here, then maybe blink here. Then, you know, the blinks aren't equal in time. And what I mean by that is like when I blink my eyes, I might blink my eyes quickly if there's something in them, or like while I'm talking. I think you blink like a few times every 12 seconds or something like that. Here, let's see. And animals are less than that. Animals blink a lot less than that. How many times does a human blink in a second? I think it's like 2 or 3. 15 to 20 times per minute. And we're working in seconds here. So it's so like that, I would maybe wait till like this. You could do that. You could maybe have the eye, like looking like maybe I don't think if there was like another layer to this and you had like the whites of the eye, I don't think that these... Their eyes are really pretty. But they don't really have a white to their eye. They kind of have like this black that's behind them. Well, the parrots do at least. Yeah, maybe a few blinks until the transition. And then you can just copy and paste that, right? So then it happens, you know, but that'll give this like something's happening on here. You could even, if you have the body on the rest of this and you mask the body out using the circle, kind of like I did with the tree, the whole tree technique, you could have the head moving as well. Because this, we need some kind of rigging in the animation, and there's unfortunately not any rigging throughout this. You don't have the bird moving. So like some kind of wing movement. It doesn't have to be a full flap, but it can be kind of like, you know, how they like lift their wings out a little bit. I want to see some kind of parenting happening here. And I think that, you know, it would benefit from that a lot. I'm sorry, I keep clicking down here when I need to click down here. So I think that the eye blink here would be great.
Was officially announced extinct.
Also, oddly enough, your voiceover is very quiet as well. So because your questions don't sound like this. So were you using a different mic to record your voiceover? I can help you guys record your voiceovers too. Yeah, like a little wiggle. Yeah, give it a little life because it's an animal. So maybe the head is separated from the body. The head's moving around a little bit, like just kind of up and down. Maybe the wings kind of coming out. Their little toes, right? They doing all sorts of little things with their feet. So maybe you separate their toes out a little bit, but you've got a lot of the work done, right? Illustrating is a big chunk of it, like creating your assets. As far as this one,
by the IUCN.
This is cool. I love the blur on it. Obviously the color change, and then maybe make this not so close to the edge. So move it over around here. Remember, use that title action save to tell you where to kind of get towards the edge with your text and stuff. I use Microsoft Recording and it's a doo-doo. Yeah. I would use Audition like we talked and re-record that. So in Audition it'll sound a lot better for you. Cuz I'm like, this does not sound like what you normally record for, even for your questions using OBS. So just use, I went over how to do that in a couple classes ago, so just rewatch that and use it. It's very quick to do it inside of um, Audition. And then, so yeah, so move these over a little bit so that they're within this title action safe, and just make sure that the spacing, and like everything's really good here, but when we're in this far into class, I'm going to nitpick things a little bit more, you guys. So it's not that, you guys are doing terrible work. I'm just nitpicking stuff more. So make sure that the spacing between these is very close, because I know that these are separated from the rest of this, and that's fine. Just make sure that the spacing looks similar. And the color on that one.
They were the rarest type of macaw in the wild. After centuries.
Let's hear what you said here.
Even before their extinction, they were the rarest type of macaw in the wild. After centuries of deforestation and illegal hunting, it sped the process of extinction.
You don't ever want blank frames on here, right? So you're going to need to extend that map or bring in this part a lot quicker.
Before their extinction, they were the rarest type of macaw in the wild. After centuries of deforestation and illegal hunting,
there needs to be a little bit more on this. Maybe what you have on here is like when this is coming up, you fade this on a lot quicker so the opacity changes faster, and then this map will be on a lot quicker, and you could using scale, pop up that little icon that you have of little areas around here, and then when you talk about the deforestation, sorry, let's do this. There we go.
After centuries of deforestation and
that was cool. I'm into that. I talked about how you could also use the fill color to animate the fill change. You could do that, but this works as well, like a gradient. It looks like a gradient change.
Sped the process of extinction.
So right here, like maybe when the deforestation is happening, it's wiping out those little icons, and they're like scaling back, or showing some kind of way to kind of convey the fact that the deforestation destroyed a lot of their habitats and destroyed the population of this bird in particular.
And illegal hunting, it sped the process of extinction. Currently, there's approximately 177 Spix macaws in captivity.
177. How could we find a different way to this color blue, by the way, is great for the text. I would change the other text to this color. That's a really good choice. And then if you have that light blue background, I think that overall the color choice for this video will be very, very strong. I feel like we should maybe think about how we can visualize this statistic a little bit more instead of just having the text come on screen to show a number of how many they were. Maybe in here you show
Spix macaws in captivity.
Maybe you show some kind of environment of the blue macaw inside of a captivity, right? Inside of like an area where they're only living right now. So maybe it goes from, I could make a cage come down. Yeah, I mean, you could do that. You could have like some kind of cage come down, or you could have it kind of look like a jungle scene, and then it switches somehow to a scene where it's more of like a captivity thing. So maybe like he's on this branch, right? and the background is kind of like this jungle thing, and then maybe like a fencing or something comes down from the top to show that it's like now in captivity. I'm looking online to see what their kind of environments look like. Because I mean, they're obviously not terrible. It's not like they're in bird prison, right? Like this is probably very rare, or he's like in for the night. It's not like that's not like what a majority of them are inside of captivity. I can make a cage coming down. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said something else there. I thought I saw something. So maybe instead of we think about maybe a zoo, right? Maybe you could have like some kind of zoo sign come down. Because that's what I think of when I think of them in captivity. They're inside of like, I don't know what your research turned up, but I don't think they're like, I'm sure some private buyers have them, which is horrible to think about, but mostly they would be inside of like this environmentally friendly area. Oh my God, why did I have to? My finger just hit enter and it brought this up, and that's sad. He's lonely and looking for love. That's what the. You could have like the cage come behind like this. That would be neat. Like you could do something similar to that. I like that idea more. At least there would be more on screen, right? Instead of just like a number. I think it would just be more visually interesting for this. But overall, you have a good start here. I like the music. That's really cool. Thanks for watching. The music, which is good. That's great. Plenty of time to read these on screen. Your little guy who hops. So funny. Good job overall, Keith. Beautiful illustration too. I think you're close. You're like 60% there. I think there with a little bit more work, you'll get a much stronger animation out of this. We just have to add more animation to it. And you've got plenty of time. So you can resubmit this before Thanksgiving, and I'll go over it again. But good job overall, you guys. Like good starts to these. We're starting to understand them a little bit more. Do you guys have any more questions in the chat right now? Let's see. I still only have 3, right? Let's refresh that. Perfect. Let's go here. We're going to introduce the next project. Bring this off screen for a second. Lena, I'm forcing you to have a question. I'm just kidding. Lena, you better ask a question. You're all, how's the weather? All right. No, what did I do with it? Did I close it? I did not. Okay. Just need to change the due date on this. Coming up with these with their next project, I'm going to be more strict on the deadline because this is our last project, like last big project before we put together our reel. And that being said, we're going to start kind of stacking things together. So you're going to also have another revision round. I'm probably not going to give you the revision round next week because you guys are still working on your 3-scene animations. And I want to see the revisions with your 3-scene animations in there. So we're probably going to wait on the revision round maybe another week or so. But that one's going to be added on to whatever kind of other things you have in here. So just kind of keeping that in mind is that we're kind of starting to stack our work. Normally inside when you're working at a studio or something, if you're working at least in marketing, you usually are working on more than one project at a time. You're dealing with a couple projects simultaneously. So knowing how to manage your time is really important. And thus far, I've not really layered too many projects together. But with this project in particular, the Colorscope project, we're going to be treating this project a little bit more like a similar pipeline as a normal project you would go into. So up until now, we've done just kind of this, especially with this last project, script and then voiceover and animation, right? Very quick together. But with the Colorscope project, we're going to work more with planning, a little bit more pre-planning into this project. And so this first section of it is we're going to create a design brief. And today I'm going to talk to you guys about what the design brief includes. But the stages are going to be a little bit more broken down so that you guys have time to really put effort and thought into this video. Let's see here. We're going to do design brief, which will include the storyboard and script. And then, so that's what's going to be due next week. And then we're going to work on the voiceover and animatic, which I will talk about next week once we get to that part. And then we will be doing a rough cut. We'll be creating and turning in assets, which also might be included with the animatic and voiceover. So let me see. And then, but this is kind of the organization that we're going to do it and the steps in the process that we're going to take. And then we're going to have the rough cut of your scenes together. And then we're going to have a second draft and then your final draft. And this is more closely resembling the pipeline that you would see when it comes to setting up or planning out an entire video. A design brief is going to be just kind of an explanation in words and imagery that is going to talk about what you're planning to do. So it's not it's a little bit more detailed on the writing side and the research side, but it's not detailed where you're not creating your assets right away. But we're kind of gathering the information and a list of what we need to get ready to do those assets. So this is going to be the first part of the assignment. And then the second part of the assignment is going to be the voiceover, animatic, and the creating of your guys' assets. Maybe just creating, maybe we're not turning them in right away. Possibly. Actually, let me just leave that way because I might have you guys just show them and you don't have to necessarily turn them all in yet, but just kind of giving me an idea of what they're looking like. And then we're going to put them into a rough cut. You're going to get feedback on it. You're going to implement that feedback into the final draft. And so this is kind of the steps of the process. We we might have this broken down. Instead of having one whole week to do this, you guys are just going to have a due date to get it done and get it in, because I'm going to need to review these steps as we go. That being said, you have a little bit more time in the beginning to really get that pre-planning down and understand what you're going to do, which is going to make that animation process a lot quicker. And so this is great for you guys to just learn more of the process of how things work and the pipeline. When I say pipeline, it means just kind of the organization of putting together a project. So will there be a hard due date for each stage? Yes, there is going to be a hard due date for the stages now. Moving forward, when it comes to this, we're no longer going to have really a range. I want it turned in at a certain time. There might be more of a range for when we get to the rough cut and the drafts part, depending on how much time we have, but we're cutting it close. Like I said, we only have 6 more classes until our last class. And our last class, we don't do anything but review your guys' work. So I have to have everything turned in before that. Like, everything has to be done. There is no turning anything after that class. That's the last class. That's the last time it is to turn this in. So that's why I'm getting like harder on these deadlines for you guys. I had the ranges before to give you guys a little bit more time in between, but this is more how it operates in the real world. You have a hard deadline, you make that deadline. You don't make that deadline, you get reprimanded. You continuously don't make that deadline and you're fired. And I know it sounds kind of harsh the way you say it like that, but that's the reality of it. Is because if you can't make your deadlines, that's a big no-no in this field. Being able to manage your time is really important. So with that being said and kind of laid out, let's go over like this whole Colorscope thing and what this is. Several years ago, CNN hired a group of studios to get together and create these Colorscope animations. And they talk about specific colors and like the history of the colors. So if I were to play this, I'm going to have to shut the music down for it so that it doesn't get taken down. Let's pick one. Let me pick this one for pink. Before I play it, I'm going to turn this down. Play this. So we have this. Well, let me.
Pink isn't a color, but a tint. It's simply light red with a better name.
So we have, I just wanted you guys to be able to hear kind of the voiceover. So it's a very similar setup to what we had prior with the, both the custom 3-scene animation and also the monarch butterfly one, where you have a voiceover and music and something happening on screen. So it's going to be a full video, right? This one's going to be a little bit longer than what you guys have been doing before. This one's going to be closer to around 45 seconds, whereas the other ones are maybe around 30 seconds. So not much of a difference. These very detailed ones are obviously closer to a minute and a half, right? This one's a minute and 23 seconds. But what you'll notice when watching these is that there are going to be a series of effects that you're listening to within the voiceover, and kind of these abstract imagery or thoughts or ideas that are playing on screen that convey what is being said. There's not exactly like I said before with the text on screen, you should never have text on screen that's just like reading the script or describing what's happening. That's boring to watch. There needs to be some kind of visualized imagery that conveys what is being said, that relates to what is being said within the script and the voice or the voiceover, same thing, script, voiceover. And so just pre-planning this out and thinking in maybe a little bit more of an abstract way is a smart idea when it comes to this. And so I want you guys to go through this Colorscope series. Let me see this one right here. Yeah, it's all the same. And you can see who's created it. This one's Sarah Grace Minkarius, who created that one. Giant Art Studios created this one. Emmanuel Walker did this one about orange. And so, you know, I know there's more here if you hit next. Let's see here. The second page. You've got purple here. The purple one's really cool. Let's maybe play.
Of opposites. A mixture of the hottest color and the coldest. Violet light vibrates about 700 trillion times every second.
So with the violet light, he's showing like waveforms of the light. In this kind of more of an abstract way to visualize these waveforms, and very chaotic motion, but also very organized motion.
It has more energy than any other color.
Creating something else, talking about energy, like how is energy imagined? Because you're going to find that a lot. A lot of these, when you start finding facts about colors and where colors came from or where they originated from, might talk about emotions, feelings, energies, things that you can't necessarily see, but you have to visualize somehow. And so that's why this project requires a little bit more forethought when it comes to it.
Ultraviolet light has so much energy that it burns our skin. The human eye.
You know, talking about the human eyes, like looking at what it can see. And so I really want you guys to go through all of these videos and watch them and start noticing what you're hearing versus what you're seeing. Maybe some different techniques that you might already know moving into this. A big thing is for this project, using the skills that you already know and not, you want to work within the realm of your current abilities and not beyond what that is. So there's like an 80-20 rule. 80% of your videos should be techniques that you know how to work with, and 20% should be things that maybe you want to learn or need a new skill set within that. But with that skill set, you have to think, what do I have time for? Again, here we come up with that juxtaposition of time management versus the scope of the project. With this one in particular, you don't want to get too complex. The simpler the ideas and the project goes, right? It doesn't have to be super simple, but the more simplistic it is, the easier it's going to be animate. This thing probably took months to create. Each one of these videos took a long time to create. It was not doing this in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? That's what we're doing it in. You will not achieve this based on your guys' skills and where you're at inside of school right now. This is just not a realistic goal to have, but some of these techniques within here are realistic for you guys that you can have. And I'm not saying that you would never create anything like this, but I'm just saying this kind of work is done by studios mostly, or people who have been doing this for a very long time and know a lot of different techniques. Now, you guys can follow these studios on Instagram, which is really cool and important, so you guys can see new and trending things that are happening. The transition in this one was amazing. Yeah, the transitions are phenomenal. The transitions use a lot of match cuts, which means you're matching up kind of a similar shape or motion to each other and cutting from one to the other at the height of the speed of that change. Match cuts kind of take a while to become very familiar with, but it's a really popular technique to use within animation. But like I said here, take note of the relationship between what the voiceover is saying and what the animation is having. So really watching these videos and breaking them down is going to be really important. So you're going to watch them probably more than once, right? This animation is often not literal with the voiceover content. Rather, it complements each other in a fashion that enhances the efficacy of the entire project. Now, I urge you guys to watch all of these ones. And then here we have a collection of past students' work that you can go through and you can watch. a couple pages of this where other students have done these color scopes in chosen colors, you know, and created these projects. So we can kind of watch these and see. Oh, let me. Oh.
Ah, yes.
I haven't watched some of these in a long time, so.
Silver. Ah, yes. Silver.
This one.
The color of luster, wealth, and magnificence.
The issue with this color silver is we're not doing metallics, okay? So when you guys are picking your colors, stay away from glitters, gold, anything metallic, any like pattern thing. We're not doing that. Stick with colors. So let's kind of not look at that one. Let's watch maybe this one right here.
Black is the color of consumption. Black holes are the graves of suns, so dense in their mass that nothing can escape their gravitational pull, not even light.
Really cool.
Vanta black is the darkest known pigment of black, absorbing 99.96% of visible light, licensed to only a single man for artistic purposes. Several projects have been titled The Black Album, from Jay-Z, Prince, and Metallica. Each was released to critical acclaim.
There you go. Some really cool, interesting facts. There's a lot of facts
Black
in here.
Black diamonds were once thought to be an ancient blessing or a curse, dependent on the culture.
Notice how many scenes he has in here. So he has his introductory scene. He has another scene here. There's 3 scenes here. 4 scenes. 5 scenes. So you can see how this is starting to stack up more and more, right? Let me go back here. We can watch. Let's see one of these older ones. Let's go to 2. Let's watch. Ooh, someone did chocolate. I don't remember that one. Let's watch this one.
Burgundy is the color of ambition. The color is named after a city
touching
in
on the new
France
project.
popular for its wine. Burgundy is based on the color of said wine and is associated with high class.
Now, some of the things that you're noticing in this project versus the other project is that we're now mixing both After Effects and Cinema 4D. It should be like at least have one scene inside of Cinema 4D. That's what I'm looking for. You don't have to have them all 3D. A lot of students will just have maybe some 3D assets with very simplistic animations in them. And a majority of the rest of it is going to be inside of After Effects, and that's fine. You can have 1 to 2 scenes that are done in Cinema 4D.
Society. People seeking to display their power and wealth would wear burgundy clothing. Its hue and shade signify sophistication and seriousness.
All right. Really cool stuff there. So I want you guys to really go through and watch several of these student examples as well to get an idea of what we're looking for. So within this project, it should include, while you're like assembling your design brief, it should include the following things to keep in mind. Scenes made in both AE and, oh yeah, it doesn't do that, and C4D, at least 1 3D, 1 asset in 3D, right? These are important. You guys probably want to write these down. Create your own assets. A VO. no more than, let's say 4 facts, right? Music / sound effects that you'll want in this. So definitely, I don't know why I added an extra space in here, but I did. So sorry about that, you guys. But this 1, 2, 3, 4. So while you're putting your design brief together, I want you guys to start thinking of what kind of assets do I need? What is going to be done in 3D? What is going to be done in After Effects? You know, obviously your VO is going to be your script, so you're going to have to write your script. And then maybe what kind of sound effects you might want for each scene. The music can always come as you're animating it together, but really, you know, thinking what kind of sound effects you can add to it can be done at this stage. Now, the design brief, the first step in the journey is creating the design brief, right? It's a document that's going to define your plans for your animation. It's going to kind of outline them and serve as like a guide to the process. It's not something that you have to stick 100% to, but using it as like, okay, I'm going to have this in this scene and this in this scene, and maybe the animation's slightly different than what I said it was going to be inside of my document, but it's pretty much generally like sticking to the outline that you've created, your design brief, right? You must select your color first. You may select a color or a hue that is not in the original Colorscope 9. So a lot of them were very basic, right? Orange, blue, red, green. Those were the colors that were in the Colorscope, but you can get a little bit more detailed. So maybe indigo, or I've had people do lavender, or cerulean, or, you know, something like that. You may not, again, every semester I have someone trying to do this, and if you try and do this, you're going to waste your time. Okay? Do not do it. Don't select shiny colors like gold, silver, platinum, glitter, anything like that. It becomes an issue when it comes to rendering. It's going to take a lot of time. It's hard to depict inside of a flat 2-dimensional space inside of After Effects. So let's not do it. Beware also when choosing a color that is overly specific, it may be difficult to do research on. But here's some colors that some past students have done theirs on, and they usually find some good colors to go with it. A lot of students do blues and violets, like purple and blue. I don't have a ton of students doing really a lot of warmer colors, which is interesting, like not too much yellow. I did have someone do yellow last semester, which was cool. I'm not saying you have to do it because it's not done, but I'm just saying, like, there are some that students kind of prefer to go towards. These are some, here is a class, the class where I go over the design briefs. You don't have to watch the entire video, but if you watch me going through the design briefs with the students in class, you'll kind of have an idea of what I'm looking for more. And then here are some examples of past student design briefs. So you can download these to look at. Yeah, I've had a couple people do orange. I mean, obviously there's only so many colors in the spectrum of colors, but you know, there are just some colors that students gravitate more towards, and it's usually cooler colors. And out of the warmer colors, I think red is the one. I would say the least popular colors that students pick are orange and yellow. And I'm a fan of all color. So, you know, as long as it's cohesive. Let's kind of jump to this, you know, looking through these design briefs here really quick. This is the first one as an example. And the color that was picked was black. Black goes with everything. I find the shade to be interesting. So it's like just kind of a description of why you picked that color. And then here is where your scenes in your script is coming in, right? Black is the color of omnipotence. One of the most powerful forces of the universe is the black hole. Part 2. In ancient Egypt, the color black often represented death and darkness, as well as life, birth, and resurrection. This one's actually Belle's. I believe it's Belle's design brief. And so you're going to break down your script here, right? Part 1 of your script, 2, 3, 4 of your script. And then the color palette, which you pick. Now, there is a place to pick the color palettes. Let me kind of scroll down here a little bit further. Down here, I have a little section that talks about color palettes. When picking the color, you can use the Adobe Color Wheel website, which I will go to and kind of navigate through with you guys here real quick to pick your color. A big thing with this, though, is we are doing this is going to be a monochromatic, right? It's going to be, if you looked at all the rest of them, they were all a monochromatic shade of that one color that they picked, right? And so we're not going to be doing like blues and oranges and complementary colors, nothing like that. You're going to want to pick monochromatic. You're allowed to use black and white or brown, especially because brown lends itself to orange. It's just a darker shade of orange. And so brown is allowed to be used as well. You'll see that inside of the orange Colorscope example, but don't use both, right? I'll allow black and white, but I don't want a ton of black and white in it. It should be used as accents, very, very subtle accents, and not a majority of your frame, unless you're doing like the color black or white, which are colors you can also do. Well, I guess white won't work and black won't work because you would be doing gray at that point. Well, black works. Yeah, no, I guess you can do white or black, but you'll be doing shades of gray in between. You want to save your color palette to your Adobe profile. You just have to log into your Creative Cloud and you can save it that way. But you're going to want to take a screenshot of this color palette and then put it into your design brief right here. Let me download this, and that way we can look at it like that. All right, it's a little bit easier to do this. All right. Let's go here. Let's pick a color palette out. I will go with orange because Keith said orange in the chat. So the first thing that you want to do, we're not recoloring the work, but that is a cool feature here. Close that. Close this. All right, the first thing you guys want to do up here is you want to change it from analogous to monochromatic or to shades, right? So shades will pick different shades here of colors for you to work with. Let's see, monochromatic. I will do that one. And then let's pick the main color, which is going to be an orange. Why are you doing this? Let's just move this. Each one of these little bubbles or these little circles, when you grab them and move them, they will pick the color. So let's do that. And we'll go to monochromatic of that. Actually, let me see shades. Shades is a little bit easier because it gives you a little bit more contrast here. And then what I would do is I would line these up from either darkest to lightest or lightest to darkest. So let me see here. If you start to look at these colors together, a lot of them are similar. Again, when I said earlier when I was talking about saturation, a couple of them are a little too similar in saturation. So maybe this one here, I would make a little bit darker coming into here and being able to increase the depth of that. I think that these two colors here are a little close to each other. Hold on. This color and this color are a little too close, and this color and this color are slightly too close. If you put them next to each other, you would be able to see that. And so maybe what I want to do is keep this color the same here, but maybe lighten this color a little bit more. So maybe I'm going to go down a little bit more like that. And then this one here, maybe drop this down a little bit lighter. So you can shuffle. You can shuffle the RGB, right? The red, green, and blue in here to give it kind of a different tone. And then maybe this one I'd want to be my brightest colored yellow, or these colors are very goldish in hue. And so it's kind of turned more to a yellow, but we want to keep it that orange color. So let me bring this a little bit more like that. So you just want to make sure that when you're doing this, you're not venturing into a different color, right? Because we want to keep it orange. So then this one might have to change a little bit. And go back to this way. Maybe go back that way. Maybe this color, we're going to start off here. You can always do this too. You can copy this, paste it here, and then just start messing this color around a little bit to make it a little bit darker. There. And then this one, maybe this one's going to be a little bit lighter. You can also work in a different mode. So instead of red, green, blue, you can do hue, saturation, brightness, which is actually a little bit easier to work with. So let's like desaturate this orange a little bit more. Keep it that kind of orange, but just drop it down. Maybe we tint it a little bit. So then we have like this color palette that's starting to create itself, right? And so, you know, it'll go to customs, but you want to start off with monochromatic or shades. In the scenes, are we allowed to use multiple shades of the same color? Yeah. Obviously, you're going to have to do that when you're creating it to show contrast of things. Like if you look at the students' work here, let's see.
Orange is the color of adventure. It embodies warmth.
Here you have the same hues happening, or the same shades of them happening in different areas, but this student used gradients to kind of separate them out from each other.
Ranking Buddhist monks in Japan.
There are
and it's the color of the
same. Let me kind of go here. You see the same hues. Oh, that's a 3D crown.
Purple is the color of the robes donned by high-ranking Buddhist.
You know, this color and this color are the same, but obviously it's not the same color as this main robe. So you're going to have to reuse colors over again and get smart on how you're working colors into your scene and how, you know, it plays off of other objects. Let me keep going over here. Let's talk a little bit about your script. So now you guys kind of know how to pick your color palette. And then you're going to drop the color palette into here. You guys have a PDF down at the bottom here. You can use InDesign, but I usually don't have students using InDesign. I usually have them using the PDF, which they download and then just insert things into it and update it. If you're comfortable using InDesign, you can, but I usually don't have a ton of students doing that. Now, when it comes to the script, so it's kind of laid out in how you will do this. You're going to look for facts beyond like Wikipedia articles, okay? And so here's a couple different websites where you can find some facts about colors, and, you know, do a deep dive into this and really find some interesting facts that have to do with it, because I don't want to hear the same facts that are, you know, given by other classes and past classes, and it starts to get boring. So find some more interesting facts that you're, you know, digging in on the web. That's why maybe getting into a little bit more of a specific color can set you apart from other students. The script should be 4 sentences that focus on the color, you know, research that color and write those sentences inside of the design brief here. Sentence 1, 2, 3, and 4. Usually students benefit by using a similar format to this, like black. For this one that Belle did, she said black is the color of omnipotence. Starting your sentences off like that is very helpful. Red is the color of desire. Blue is the color of tranquility. So you can see kind of where we're going with that. You should time yourself by reading out your script at a normal reading pace. So if you were to take these design briefs here and read through them, they should be no longer than 45 seconds. You know, if you're longer than that, you're going to have to shorten your sentences out. And I need you guys to stick to this because I have a lot of students who like to end up putting a lot more information in here when simplicity is the key to this project. And what happens, they end up writing paragraphs, and I'm going to nix those paragraphs. I'm going to say, nope, too long, way too long. We need to cut this down a lot more. So you don't want to end up doing that. So just sticking to what you're seeing on here, and you know, that is what it needs to be. Because the more information you have, the more your video is going to need to have. And we are on limited time, right? And this is going to be a bigger project than you've done. I mean, it's going to be closer to the one that you're doing right now with the custom 3-scene animation. So, adding in the script here, color palette here. And then I want you to watch those Colorscope scenes, right? And I want you to put screen captures of some creative things that you might want to emulate or do something similar to, or that you really liked, right? So in Belle's, she said she wants to emulate a similarly creative, smooth, and effective transitions, since there's these ones that she saw there, right? Some of these transitions are going to be very complex, and some of them we can work around and do something very similar to. But like paying attention to those and writing where you found your inspiration is going to be very helpful. So you're going to, like, let's see here. There's space to discuss your examples. You're going to write those examples down, maybe what you like about it. And then you're going to put screenshots there as well. So that's going to be the next part of this design brief. It's just kind of picking the inspiration from those ones and then putting it in here. It doesn't all have to be from the color scopes from the professional ones either. If you guys see something that you like inside of one of the students' videos, you put that down here as well and be like, I want to learn how to do this, or, you know, and then we can talk about that. So here is Belle's storyboard. Now Belle, so her inspiration ends right here. And this is where her storyboard begins. Her storyboard has all of her imagery created and put into here. Yours does not have to do that. It can be very simple, right? It doesn't have to be fully fledged out illustrations like this one is. This is kind of higher achieving example of this, where she had already created a majority of her assets, right? And you kind of want to plan this out so you guys can easily just sketch something, pencil and paper, take pictures of it and put it into here. You can also just sketch something in whatever kind of program, but usually storyboards are a way to show what kind of visuals you plan to have in that scene and whatever kind of motion that's going to be there. So if we look up storyboards online, you're going to see a lot of these just very simplistic sketches. Some people, you know, are storyboard artists specifically, and so they just draw like this in general. Yours does not have to be that detailed. It can be, something like this. Very simple, right? I recommend, stay away from characters because we have not animated characters in this class, and I'm not about to show you how to animate a character for this specific thing because it takes a long time to do that. And you might be able to get away with some things. We can show ways of kind of moving around animating an entire character like a walk cycle. Maybe your character is just moving from the waist up, right? So think of those things. But I would generally try and stay away from characters inside of your thing, or, if you're going to have a character, just one, not a lot. You want to kind of show any kind of motion that's going to be in the scene. So it can be movement of a camera. It can be movement of maybe a transition. It could be movement of the objects in the scene. And you achieve that by creating arrows, right? So the arrows, specifically on this one, you have obviously someone's sad. You can kind of gather what's happening in these scenes based on what we're seeing here. The arrows help to show the motion. So the arrows coming from the corners of the box are showing that we're going to push in with the camera. We're going to dolly into that scene or kind of slow zoom into that scene. This image right here is showing like people are swinging something. Maybe these ones here, they're rotating around and doing something else. So really learning how to just sketch the motion is what we're looking for here, and kind of the design layout of your scene. Because you're normally not going to come up with the perfect idea right away. It's going to take a couple sketches before you're like, okay, I like the layout of the scene. This looks good. I think this will work. And so, I want you to do like kind of a preliminary simple sketch. Like I said, it doesn't have to be like this. She got very detailed here and had already done her vector drawings for it. If you want to go that far and you have the time to do it, that's fine. If you don't have too much time to do that, then just a simple pencil and paper or digital sketch will do. Right here, I say keep it simple. It's much easier to build on a well-executed, simple plan than it is on a bad plan right off the bat, right? A poorly designed, poorly executed, complex idea is going to be harder to work with than something that's simple and easy and that you can do things with, right? Here's this rule again, the 80-20 rule. So keep that in mind. 80% of this video should be skills that you already know, and the additional 20% should be maybe things that you want to learn. That's doable, right? When if you guys do draw your storyboard on pencil and paper, here's a way that you can scan it in, right? And so you want to follow those instructions on how to scan your images in. But use some good storyboard. Here's some good storyboard practices. Again, using arrows to indicate motion, motion of cameras, motion of the objects, motion of the transitions. Keep the detail low. Right? Spending time thinking about the animation will manifest rather than increasing the visual fidelity of the storyboard. We're not worried. The storyboard is just a plan, right? It's just a plan for you guys. And then you're going to fill out these different fields within there. So you notice that on your storyboard, there's a bunch of descriptions right here, right? So you're going to describe what's going to be happening inside of that scene, right? You're going to describe it there on what you want it to look like. So hers is very, detailed. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but just enough detail to get the idea across. It will follow a path around the O of the word omnipotence. Background will be a starburst effect. Simple ideas, right? Or simple description of her ideas. I can visually see it already. A list of assets that she's going to need here. So what kind of things are you going to have to create for that scene? List them out. Any 3D assets too. When you're going to get to your 3D scene, like what are you going to need to do in 3D? Because the 3D scene, you might have to learn how to build something, right? A list of specific sound assets. Similar, she put a space sound and then she gave a link here similar to that so that we could hear what it would sound like. And maybe and then here's the other part is a list of animation techniques that you think you'll need to know for this. Hers was how to create a starburst and a rotation around the letter O. And then also finally putting in your voiceover, what's going to be said here. And so you really want to break these down. Please follow some of these examples here. Let's see a different design brief. Download a couple of them. Look at them real quick. All right. Anna did cyan, right, which is a shade of blue. And so she gave her sentences here. Cyan is a color of relaxation, her main sentence. Cyan was first used as a color name in English in 1879, right? She's got her shades here, her color palette. She's got her inspiration here on what she likes with some screenshots to explain it. And then here is her storyboard. She as well had already sketches out. I mean, if you can sketch them out inside of a digital program that can quickly just show what it is because you're fast in it, go ahead and do that. But if you want to just quickly do something inside of, with pen and paper, just really fast, I'm okay with that as well. She didn't really fill out these things here, so I really want you guys to think about filling out these sections here, because this is how I need to know. So you guys need to be filling these out. The voiceover, what's going to be said over that scene, so that we can start to get an idea of how this video is going to flow. Do you guys understand what I'm talking about? Let's look at that other one I downloaded. Do you guys have any questions about it? Here's a great one. Fabio did it where he sketched it like this and showed with arrows what things will be looking like, right? It's a lot easier to just kind of do it like this and quickly get those ideas out. Scene 1 storyboard. And you could see this in his video as well if you look this up. So all of the information in the document is called the design brief. Correct. Yes. Yes, correct. So the design brief is going to include your script. It's going to include the color palette that you chose. It's going to include the inspiration for the video, like the scenes that you have that are going to inspire you for your video. And then it's going to have your storyboard in there. And so the storyboard is going to be a description of what the video is going to kind of look like and move like. No, you don't have to cite your research. Similar to the other one. And then your storyboard will end here. But this, I want this done. The design brief I want completed by, I have it for next, for Monday night of next week, so that I can go over these. Let's see here. Yeah. November 20th. At 11:59, because we're going to go over these as well as your participation questions in class on Tuesday. Okay, so you guys are going to get your approval for your script this way, and then feedback on your storyboard. And this is a hard deadline, so if you guys miss this deadline, you're going to get points will be taken off, and you're not going to get as good a feedback, right? Which is going to cause more feedback later on down the road when you guys end up animating. So the better your plan is, the more solid that the plan is in your design brief, the faster the process is moving down the road. You're going to submit a PDF to Canvas and then use the template. You can use in fact, I'm just going to delete that. I want everyone to turn in a PDF using the PDF thing. Let me just. Don't use InDesign. you can, yeah, you can print it out, and but then if you print it out and draw on this, you need to rescan it in. Okay, you guys, let me see here. I forgot that I had that on there. I have students who would rather use pen and paper and write everything down, which is fine. You can do that. Download the blank design brief here. And then, like I said, if you guys need to know how to upload it, you can watch this video. Compile everything together. You're going to use, well, if you download the PDF here, let me just, what did I do? Hold on. Let me just close that. We'll open this up. It's going to be blank. And so you can just go to edit here. And you can just click on here. Move over. Let's see. Hit enter and type stuff in, right? So you can do it that way. And so it'll be just done in Adobe. Shoot, what's it called? Adobe Acrobat. I'm like trying to think of it. Because all your PDFs are put in Adobe Acrobat. So you can just click on here and enter in your text, right? You can click here and fill this section in, and then you'll take screenshots and you can just replace the image with your screenshot there once you take the screenshots. And then also like this. So these are just examples for you guys. So just kind of follow along with this design brief, reading through it, and just do what it says. But it should always be the following, right? I want to see in the design brief is going to have your script. It is going to have your color palette. It is going to have your inspiration. And it is going to have your storyboard. That's what the entire design brief entails. And that's what needs to be turned in by Monday night next week. If you decide to print this off and do this, you could still bring this in and scan it into Adobe Acrobat to create a PDF, and then you can add screenshots in at that point as well. But there needs to be screenshots of like your inspiration and stuff. Or what you can do is you can draw your images, you can scan those in, and then you can just insert the pictures into the document. What do I mean about inspiration? Going through the Colorscope projects, through the CNN ones, and screenshotting certain scenes that are going to inspire maybe some techniques that you will use inside of your video. So let me show you here. Why did he do that? Come on, open up. Here we go. So for instance, inside of, I like this one. This one was good. Inside of Fabio's design brief, right? He has a script. He has his color palette. He has the inspiration from the CNN videos that he watched. So discuss some of the transitions from the Colorscope series that you would like to emulate. or any kind of techniques that you saw that you guys want to emulate in your project, right? So any waving water things, like anything that you see here, maybe he wanted to emulate, provide the screen captures. He discusses which scenes. When he says the color can be toxic and the beetle was walking on top of the flower died, and top of the flower that died transcribed over the voice. Like, you just write a description of what you liked about that scene. His so you're just kind of breaking it down, and he's talking about the juxtaposition between the what is being said is what is and what is being seen. So you're just describing what you like about the scenes. Visually, maybe the voiceover, what you're seeing versus what you're hearing, maybe transitions. So you're just kind of watching these and you're writing down what inspires you about those, and maybe what parts of those things that you might want to add into your video. It doesn't all have to be like that, but just kind of like these ideas. So it's a collection of ideas and inspiration that's going to maybe sway the way your video goes, if that makes sense. So, with that being said, do you guys have any more questions? This is due Monday. Monday. Whoa. This is due by next Thursday, right? So then the following Tuesday, because next Thursday's class, we're going to be gone. It's Thanksgiving Day, so we only have one class next week. So you guys really want to make sure that you have this design brief turned in, because that's the only day that I'm going to go over those. Because then you're going to need to start creating your assets, which is going to also take a lot of time up. So we have to be diligent about the due dates for these ones. Also, remember, you have to have at least one asset that is made in 3D on there. So maybe, you're going to want to describe that in your storyboard under the description parts of the assets that you need. Be like, I want this thing to be 3D. Working on multiple projects, time management, any advice for time management, working on multiple projects at a time. Complete what's most important at the time. So honestly, I'd probably prioritize getting this done first, the design brief, and then continue working on your custom 3-scene animation, because the due dates, you have to think of like what's due when. So this is due Monday night. So I'd want to get this done right away. Plus this is really just research and development and a plan, which will be a lot quicker than animating will, right? And so getting this done, if it were me, I would prioritize this first and then move back to my custom 3-scene animation, because the custom 3-scene animation's due date isn't until next Thursday. So you have a full extra week, right? Because it's not due until yeah, let me just double check what the range was on this. Yeah, the 23rd, which is in a week. So you have a little more time to work on this. And then in class on Tuesday, I'm going to go over your participation questions. I'm going to go over your design briefs and approve things and help edit them for you guys. And then we have no class next Thursday. And then the following Tuesday is when I'll go over your, we'll go over your custom 3-scene animations. We'll go over the rest of everyone else's. And then we're going to work in the revision round down there. And then we're going to continue pumping this. So that's how I prioritize things as far as time management goes, is what is due first. All right. Like what, and if there's things due at the same time, what is the most work first? Right. So let's say you have two things due on the same day. I'm going to do the one that requires the most work first, so I can get that pumped out and out of the way. And then I'm going to focus on the other thing that I can, go through, and maybe takes a lot less time to do. It's not very often that due dates land on the same day. Especially for big assignments when you're doing projects. Like I usually have about 5 to 6 projects that I'm working on at the same time. And due dates rarely ever land on the same day for me, because sometimes clients push due dates, sometimes things need to be, things are in legal review for longer than you're expecting. So, things move around, and then there's some days where I'm like, I've got 3 things due this week and I gotta like get them done, right? So I'm hustling. So it's kind of like it goes from not a ton of work to a lot of work, or it's very smooth, up and down on how the work goes. But I think that I had enough time to explain the Colorscope thing to you guys. Do you have any more questions before I let you go for the rest of the week? I know Keith doesn't have any questions. He said no. Nakara, Lena, you guys have questions? Yeah, not a problem. All right, you guys. I hope you have a good weekend. I want you to have fun with this project, and I want you guys to have the appropriate time to create them. That's why we're starting it now. But enjoy your weekend. Have some fun. You'll get this done. I know you guys will. So, all right. Have a good one. Bye, guys.